Hello, my name is Jess from Sallie Tomato, and today we were inspired by Misty's freestyle sunset wall hanging design for the front pocket on the Miranda bag pattern. This design is so fun to work with because there is a guarantee that no one will create the exact same design as you. You can be free in your design while knowing that all of the pieces will fit perfectly together. For this particular bag pattern, we will need a rectangle shape for the front pocket, so I've already went ahead and referred to the measurements for that specific piece. So once you've referred to your pattern and decided on the size of the quilt block that you need to create, the next step is to decide your fabrics and in the order that you want them shown on the front panel of your bag. So once you've gathered your fabrics and have your pieces laid out in the order that you want them, we can get started by making our quilt block inspired Miranda bag. Today, we were inspired by Misty's freestyle sunset wall hanging design for the pocket of the Miranda. This design is so fun to work with because it is a guarantee that no one will make this the same way that you did. And you can be free in your design while knowing that we'll all fit perfectly together. For the pocket on the Miranda bag, we'll need a finished 9 inches high by 17 inch wide pocket piece. So if you're using a different pattern, make sure that you note what the finished size is for the height, and each of your strips will be cut to the width. So I have cut a few strips here from a fat quarter pack. And the first step is to decide which fabrics you would like to use for the pocket and in the order you would like them to be shown on the front of your pocket. So I decided to lay these out from the lightest to the darkest, a little bit of an ombre look. And once you have your pieces cut and laid out, we will start piecing the block for your quilt-inspired Miranda. For this project, I cut 2 strips that were 3 inches high and 2 strips that were 4 inches high. I wanted to make sure that I had enough height on each strip to accommodate the finished size and allow for the overlap while piecing each of the strips together. So we're going to start with the top 2 strips and set 2 strips aside. And we're going to start by positioning the top strip so that way each of the edges are aligned with the lines on the cutting mat. I'm going to move this a little bit closer to me so it's easier for me to cut. Then we'll want to overlap our pieces, and if you're using cotton fabrics, make sure that you have the right sides face up, so the wrong sides are against the mat. And I'm going to overlap these pieces about 1.5 inches. Otherwise, you could overlap them by 1 inch. And if it's easier, you can have the top strip on the top, so you can play around with positioning your fabrics to see what's easiest for you. So I'm just going to double check. It's actually easier for me to have the first layer down on the mat properly aligned, and then I'll align the second piece. Now we're going to take our rotary cutter and cut a gentle curve across our fabrics. And the key is to only cut where the overlapping fabrics are. So I'm looking at my ruler here. I have 1.5 inches to work with. And I'm going to hold my fabrics flat at the beginning end and continue to cut a gentle curve all the way across. So now we can remove the cut edge, which didn't cut all the way through here. So you can remove the cut edge of the second strip and then the cut edge of the top strip, which I also have to go back and get a few extra little threads that didn't quite cut. And now, like magic, both of the pieces fit together. So to piece these, we're going to simply flip the top fabric right sides together with the second strip. We're going to start at one end, and it's important to make sure that when you start that both of your side edges are even. We're going to align our fabrics. Bring it over to the machine. This will be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've set my stitch length 2.5 millimeters. And we'll start by back stitching. And as we sew the curve, we're going to align the edges. We're going to not force the fabrics together, but just align as we sew. And I've got one hand holding the top fabric and one hand guiding the bottom fabric. And just let the machine guide the fabrics through. Don't be pulling on the fabrics at all, just be gentle. And continue aligning your fabrics until you reach the opposite end. And you may notice that your fabrics look a little rumpled and crinkled, and that's okay. I'm going to grab my pressing mat. And once you open up your fabric piece, I'm going to press everything flat. And you'll notice how smooth your curves are. And everything fits together perfectly. And just like Misty mentions in her tutorial, this is such a great introduction to landscape quilting. So if that's an interest to you, this is a really great freestyle option to try it out. So now we're going to repeat that same process to attach our remaining 2 panels. We'll just want to be conscious of the size of our strips as we attach them. So I made sure that the widest strip, the 4-inch strip, was at the bottom. So that way we had a little bit more fabric to work with towards the bottom if we needed it. So next, we'll align our fabric again on the cutting mat. And I think I'm going to get a little bit more brave with this next one. Let me just double check where I'm at height-wise. So I'm at 6 inches, and I'm overlapping my fabrics about 1.5 inches again. And look at the reveal. That is so fun. And then we'll I'll remove the lower half of the fabric. We'll piece these together. And similar to what we do in bag making when we sew on the curve, I'm going to flip my project over and add a few little snips along the curved. Because some of the seam allowance wants to go down and some wants to go up. So I think these little clips will help everything relax and stay flat. I'm going to rotate the entire piece, snip the opposite edges. Just be careful that you do not cut into your stitches. Now I'm going to take my iron and press the seam allowances in the way that they naturally want to lay. And there we go. I think the seams are a little bit more happy laying in the opposite directions according to the curves. And now for our last strip, and I'm going to align the strip along the bottom of the cutting mat. And when I overlap, I'll make sure that the side edges are even, as well as the top edge of my piece is along the 9-inch mark of my cutting mat. And it looks like I was a little too generous with my second overlap. Perhaps I should have only went an inch instead of 1.5 inches, closer to 2 inches. So I'm going to recut this bottom strip so it is 5 inches high, and that way I'll have some more room to play. This is all a learning experience, and since we're fitting the pieces together to adapt to the exact size of the pocket on the pattern, then it takes a little bit of trial and error. So if you want to have the higher and lower waves and have more room for play, for a little bit more of a dramatic curve versus a gentle curve, then you'll probably want to cut each of your pieces at least 4 inches high and have the bottom one 5 inches high to make sure that we can meet the height of the pocket. Now that my strip is cut, I've aligned the bottom edge of the lower strip on my cutting mat, and I'm going to overlap the upper portion of my quilt block so that way that top edge is along the 9-inch mark on my cutting mat. I want to make sure that the side edges stay even as well. So now we have that 1.5 inch overlap just as before. So staying within that overlap, I'm going to cut my curve. And now to reveal our curve. And assemble the final strip. So before I do the pressing on this piece, I'm going to take my scissors and cut along the curve. And at the peaks and valleys, make sure to add a snip so the fabric will press in opposite directions. And this time I'm going to try pressing from the wrong side so I can see my seam allowance and make sure it presses flat. I know it's fun to press from the right side because then you get to see the reveal right away. I think this will be a little bit easier for pressing the seams flat right away. Wow, I love this so much. It turned out great. Once the block is assembled, you will want to add interfacing to the wrong side of your block to provide additional structure and ensure that you have no thread or fabric fraying issues. We recommend Pellon SF101 or Bosal Fashion Fuse, or any other lightweight fusible interfacing works perfect for this project. This exterior pocket should not be quilted with batting or foam because it will be too thick to assemble the final bag. After you apply your interfacing, it's time to gather all of your pieces and supplies to assemble the Miranda bag and follow along with the Miranda instructions. I hope you enjoyed learning how to prep your pieces for the Miranda bag. And if you'd like to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room, you can certainly cut your pieces a little bit wider and taller and then trim it down to the final size needed for your bag project. And for step-by-step instructions on how to complete the Miranda bag, we've added the assembly tutorial at the end of this video. As always, we would love to see your finished project, so be sure to tag us using the hashtags MSQC Show and Tell, hashtag Sallie Tomato, and hashtag Miranda Bag on social media so we can see your project. And if you enjoyed this video, we would love for you to give it a thumbs up and to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. Definitely check out the rest of our Missouri Star and Sallie Tomato collaborations for more inspiration and bag making tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.